Who's the guy who took over from Steve Jobs? Who's the
Tim Cook?
Tim Cook, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The operational guru?
Yeah, he's the one who sort of did all that integration, but he was talking about like the advantage they have in China is I can go into Shenzhen and I can say tomorrow I want 10,000 PhD employees, and tomorrow there will be 10,000 people waiting for me to interview them. They just have such a depth of resource availability that there's no latency, there's no delay. They can just, because they're all supporting each other, right? It's the reason you get urbanization in cities and things is that cluster of capability self-supports and self-sustains.
What does it mean to have a human in the loop?
Human in the loop.
Human in the loop. What in the world is a human in the loop?
Being a human in the loop.
AI in the loop. Humans in charge.
Welcome to Human in the Loop.
Welcome to our pilot episode of Human in the Loop, where Danu, Hamish, and myself are trying to unpack the hype of AI, maybe get a little bit sidetracked by politics and philosophy along the way, and set up what we hope is going to be an entertaining yet still deep conversation about the tech changes that are happening in the world around us.
The domestic economic potential of China is staggering. There's at Shanghai Auto Show, 150 new car brands, and the domestic new car sales in the last 3 to 5 years has been 30 million cars a year. The entire export capacity of China is 17 million cars. So you're looking at 47 million cars, roughly, that China is able to produce, and majority of that is for the domestic market. And a car is not a cheap thing.
I mean, China could sustain itself without any other
Yeah, they've got everything they need
country
end to
on the
end.
globe. So if you take here, New Zealand, where we know that we're so small, scaling is hard, we don't have the speed, we don't have a lot of the manufacturing that overseas has. So what do you think, if we bring it back to AI for a second, because China's also leading over there, and maybe, the government is set up in a slightly less risk conscious way than we are. So where do we play? What is our strength? We, New Zealand.
I mean, Hamish is definitely going to have an unsavory opinion about this. Maybe. I don't know. I'm judging you. I'm prejudging you before you have a chance to speak. I think with a background in software and computers and electronics and stuff, the one thing that's been consistent in my entire career that has been a constant limiting factor for capability has been power. So how much power can you deliver to this circuit or computer? Or
I was going to
not geopolitical power.
Voltage?
Like
are we talking
wattage.
ampoules? Are we talking
wattage, ampules, voltage, right? It's the limiting factor. It's how long a device can be portable. It's how much cost is associated to that device. It's how much heat it produces. It's how much these are the laws of thermodynamics. To quote Homer Simpson. Excuse me, Lisa, but we obey the laws of thermodynamics in this household. That was
a dreadful Homer Simpson.
I don't know. I haven't been working on my Homer a lot.
We can AI that.
So New Zealand has this weird ass advantage. We have the ability, because of our geothermal heritage, we have the ability to actually produce a power surplus. And there's a couple of interesting startups in New Zealand, like OpenStar. They're actually working towards fusion. They use some technique called levitated dipole. So it'd be so freaking awesome and ironic if a New Zealand startup cracks fusion when we crack the European Union's spending like $50 trillion trying to.
I thought it would be like a nice poetic move on because, going
it'll
back
just
to Rutherford.
So it would be absolutely
That as
poetic,
well.
but it would be so awesome that all of these like top universities and organizations have been trying to crack it for 50 years, spending trillions of dollars trying to figure it out, and then some Kiwi startup just goes, we just did that on a Sunday. I've actually visited their site. It's very Kiwi.
So do you think that clean tech or innovative power is a way forward for New Zealand?
When you combine it with stuff like DeepSeek, so like China's breakthrough around models that are more efficient, and you couple like good power dynamics with software that is power efficient, you kind of allow New Zealand to perform in a different way because other countries have to burn oil or coal, which is cheap but dirty, and that has side effects. Climate emissions, if they're participating in the climate agreements, they have penalties and all kinds of stuff, right? And then they're polluting their own environment. So New Zealand has the ability to juice up to like 80, 90% completely clean without us polluting our country. China's committed to the Paris Accord again because they don't have an option. Like they have to get off coal, and it's a quality of life because they've got these older population. They got 2 billion people roughly to take care of. If you get them all sick because of the air's not breathable, you've got a way bigger problem than being hippie or green about climate change. You've got a real, actual, tangible issue you got to deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, you prejudged Hamish's.
I did. Well, he's the number of people that died from sharks being dropped on them.
Yeah.
I mean, that was brilliant. That is now a metric. I'm going to be like, is this really a risk, or compared to a shark being dropped on you?
That actually comes from, I think it's asterisk in Britain. It's he's talking to because it's a French
asterisk and obelisk.
Yeah.
Side note, they're making that into a new series.
Every TV show I've seen so far has been terrible. I don't know,
Okay, well, hold faith for this one.
Yeah. Anyway, he's in Britain. One of the attributes.
I looked at it.
One of the attributes all the British people have is they all give these really useless ranges. So he's like, "How big is this thing?" "Oh, well, it's bigger than the pen of my uncle, but smaller than the garden of my aunt."
I love it.
So I'm always like, "Yeah, that's
See, that's
when
the
I don't know,
poeticism.
it's not useful to say I don't know. It's just like here's
Hamish,
a range."
You say you hate sales, but you sound like such a sales guy right now.
Okay, so this is one of our metrics going forward is like when you ask someone to measure something, you pass the robot test and how many
obscure your anchor point is. 4 baby sharks.
So, speaking about things going on in the world of AI, I have found some articles, and it's a little bit, is this hype, is this not? Is it true, is it not? I keep...
fake news.
Is it fake news or not? I've been getting a lot of concerned citizen, concerned friend comments going, can you tell me if this thing is actually a thing worth being stressed about? So, firstly, I'm going to bring up the article. This is off AI Innovations Hub on Instagram. An Australian radio station, CADA or CADA, secretly, I'm going to park that because that's one of the issues. That's not even to do with AI, that's to do with ethics. Secretly used an AI-generated host named Thy for months and no one noticed. The AI wasn't based on a radio professional either. It was cloned from the voice of a finance department employee using 11 Labs. Starting in November 2024, Thy hosted a daily 4-hour show without any disclosure to listeners. The truth came out when The Guardian spotted a vague mention of AI in a press release, started asking questions, and Carter eventually admitted that Thy was fully artificial. The revelation has sparked backlash from voice actors and raised concerns about transparency in broadcasting. They are trying to defend the project, the radio station, as a way to gain valuable insights into the role of media, but hasn't confirmed whether the show will continue. And weirdly, through the power of AI, I can, look at the comments and get an aggregated response. But your first reaction, park the ethics of it for starters. What do you think about the role of AI voice and radio and feeding people content artificially?
So, yeah, this is an age-old conundrum. And it's basically when you're dating a girl and then 6 months and you fall in love with her and everything, and you're just waiting for marriage. And then 6 months then you find out she's a dude.
Okay, so it's a catfish.
Yeah.
We've been catfished by media.
It's not necessarily a catfish, It's just like, what do you do in that situation?
It's a robot fish?
You're in love with him, her. Yeah, it's very much the same. I mean... Yeah.
It's exactly the same. This is a perfect analogy.
It's an age-old problem, Alaina. What I want to say is this is nothing new.
Humans lying to other humans is nothing new.
I don't think it's even lying, right?
Lying.
Like they didn't explicitly. So I think it was Facebook that had AI chat things you could talk to, and if you asked them, "Are you AI?" it would explicitly say, "No, I'm a person."
Okay,
right? That's lying.
Yeah.
Now that's not I don't know if they configured it to do that deliberately, or if it was just they hadn't thought about it and that was what the AI did. But that was, if you specifically ask an AI, "Are you an AI?" I think it should say yes. There's no law that requires it, but that's where I put the ethical line. But they didn't say this is a human.
Yeah. I mean,
Actually, we don't know that.
I was going to say, having literally just clickbait read an article and the comment, I can't even tell you that article is true. But, sources will be cited. But, did anyone ever ask? One of the comments said maybe no one spotted it because no one was actually listening. You take society and it's built on as many written as well as unwritten rules. And one of the unwritten rules, or one of the assumed things that we all have, is I turn on the radio and I'm listening to a person speak. It's a fair assumption to say that radio station has put a broadcaster who is a human on the microphone. And to break that contract with your audience, at worst, it's an ethical violation, but at best, it's just you ruined the trust with your audience, and it's a bad brand strategy.
I think maybe is the answer to that, because assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, I mean, everything is, for me, everything's on a risk scale.
Mm-hmm.
The risk of that is relatively low for me, because I'm like, I don't care, and I'm an audience of myself.
Yeah.
But there must be other people like me.
Okay. Here is a comparable example then. And I think this would break a contract, but it is comparable. Fully hypothetical situation. We have a client.
Just like me dating a girl that turned out to be a dude. Yeah. Am I lying? I don't
Let's
know.
say that we have a client and we've said we're going to build them an app, and we go through a process and they believe, but it's never specifically told to them, an AI will be working on your product, not a human being. And we deliver a product and they're happy with the product, but then they find out that not a single human being worked on it, and that upsets them. Fairly so?
So there's a thing that happens in all relationships, whether it's AI or not, right? Which is that you write little contracts with all of the people that you're talking with.
Yeah.
But you don't tell them that you're writing the contracts. You just sort of do it in your head, right?
Yeah.
Like, I will do the dishes and in exchange you will vacuum the floor.
Yeah.
But you haven't told your partner or your flatmate or whoever that you've written that contract in your head.
And if you
But
have,
then,
well done.
yeah, you should.
You survived. How? I don't know.
But then you get upset when they don't do the thing that you sort of even though they can't possibly know that you've got that expectation, right?
Or the expectation's more softly implied. So it's like, you divide the labor up. But what you're really meaning there is something more concrete in your head, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, it's part of the reason why you get this really varied response to AI is everybody has these contracts that they sort of feel like are the rules that everybody should be playing to. But everybody has slightly different rules. And so, for me, if you had a radio personality and you were advertising them as, like sometimes you get like the breakfast crew and you're advertising like these are the people and here are their faces. And then it turned out they were AI and you hadn't told me that they were AI. That's probably at that point I'm like, no, that's kind of gross. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's just like a voice that's introducing, like that was the Pixies and now it's Nirvana or whatever.
Yeah.
Brought to you by.
Yeah. In my head, in my set of rules, that's fine.
Yeah.
But everybody has a different set of rules. And part of our job is like trying to figure out what the expectations of our customers are so that we can, have them be happy. Because it's, again, not just with AI. That happens all the time, right? We work with customers all the time. And then they're like, I thought you were going to do this, or I had this expectation. And they'll get upset. Even if it's not in the contract, we've never talked about it, they'll still get upset if we haven't done it for them because they feel like that's part of the relationship, part of the rules.
So I feel like it's a lot of expectation management. And at least if you're empathetic enough to anticipate what someone else is expecting, you can provide that information and say, hey, just so you're really clear. Maybe also money exchanges where it comes in. Like I think about 5, 10, maybe 10 years ago when the influencer market really started in earnest. And there was that kind of wave of, I'm so angry because this influencer who said they went out and bought something or said that they, like this skin cream or this outfit or whatever is so amazing. I didn't realize they were sponsored to say that. And now we've got this hashtag ad or whatever it is. Now on social, you're getting, even a prompt when I manage social media for Rush, it's like, was this content generated with AI? If so, you need to say so. So it's like, how much harm are you doing? If that harm also comes at a cost or an exchange of money, that's a really specific way in which people are like if that AI radio host was telling people to go out and buy stuff or listen to stuff, you could have a fair argument to say it's using influence in a way that doesn't feel like the exchange I signed up for.
Yeah, but that Instagram example that was just pure non-compliance with the regulation. You're not allowed to do that. You can't like for like 100 years you can't do that, right? Like you can't just blindly endorse something without declaring conflict of interest. So the fact that they like had to put in a label, it's just the continual free pass we give to tech companies.
Yeah. But
it's just like, oh, you know, you're moving so fast, you're going to break things. It's cute.
There are grey areas.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're a person who does like this product and you have always used it. And then the company is like, well, if you like it so much, why don't we just give you some for free to help you talk about it more? That's not like that's endorsement, but it's like it's not off the back of something false.
No, it's not. But then it's in your, if you're an outspoken person, it's in your regulatory requirement to disclose your conflict of interest. If you can influence a position like that, you should.
Yeah.
Right?
If you're just a regular person with no particular job.
Your sphere of influence is relatively limited, right? Coming back to this radio thing, it's basically there are certain modes of interaction that would be unacceptable for an AI radio host, back to Hamish's point.
Yeah.
So for that article, need more info. I think the more interesting question is, does the radio station know that AI can do all of these things? Because the reaction I genuinely don't think is healthy. It might be how you feel, is to lambast these guys for using AI. It's like actually maybe they just didn't know about the biases, the ability for put a machine against a person, political views, apolitical views. If you alienate them now, you run a different risk, as opposed to like wrapping your hands around them and kind of going, hey guys, like instead of trying to blow this up as a clickbait story, kind of go, have you got a framework in place that allows you to decide what's okay and what's not?
Yeah.
Maybe you should run a little survey now that you know that your audience is a mixed bag about this to try and get what they're comfortable with, right? And I think that will stop them, because the worst reaction is if they didn't continue to use the technology.
Okay, so maybe number one, we need to break down this text. So like, I'll do some diving, find the source, put it in the show notes of this episode, put it on the Instagram, but stretch that further into not just for radio, the absolute necessity for any organisation using AI, especially in a public-facing way, to have a policy and framework in place. Maybe they've run a risk register. Maybe that was what they were fine with.
Well, yeah, I mean, my cynical, all marketing is bad take is this is probably the point. Right? Yep. They might have been interested to see, like, can we get away with just using AI? Because, radio is in a sort of funding crisis, so I can understand trying to be cost down.
Yeah.
But I could also see them being like, this controversy, we were kind of hoping it would happen 2 months ago.
That's why we kept the powder dry.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that's
really good. I mean, also, who's listening to one show host talk for 4 hours, like without a break, without taking a phone call? Like, I'm kind of interested to listen to what was this host talking about and what were they being fed?
But everyone knows if you need a break, you play one of the Queen tracks, right?
Stairway to Heaven, I've got. Okay, I'm going to read you another news story. Let's break it down on the old Instagram. This one I found really, really fascinating. This just came out today. Well, I became aware of this today. Headline is the UAE, United Arab Emirates, to become the first nation to use AI to write its laws. And this is so fascinating to me because we've spent the last, 18 months talking about the intersection of democracy and AI, which we will unpack over the next 2 months when we go to Chicago next month. So here's the caption. UAE is betting big on AI. Recently, the nation revealed that it will use artificial intelligence to write its laws. As the first country to do so, they assume, the UAE has approved the Regulatory Intelligence Office, which will assist in creating, reviewing and amending federal and local laws. This move follows the appointment of an AI minister in 2017. I mean, just full stop that for a second. To have an AI minister since 2017 when New Zealand is still flubbing around with, what do we do with? Anyway, that's a...
New Zealand's actually, I would say, in the middle of the pack because Judith Collins is like, she's relatively excited about it.
Yeah, but it's only last year that we started getting policy written around AI.
Yeah, we tend, as a country, we don't have the power to enforce completely different policy to anywhere else, right? If our privacy policy was significantly different to GDPR, most international organizations would just choose not to enter
Stay
the
out
New
of the
Zealand
market,
market, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with like most of our safety laws. It's like if you comply with an Australian safety law, that's enough. You don't have to apply with it, you know, because we're just not a big enough market for international companies to care about us. If we were, you know, trying to go too special, go too unique. And so I don't particularly mind us deliberately looking at what other countries are doing, right? Like Europe took quite a risk in terms of their AI policy. They've been, for Europe, incredibly fast, right? Like they're, you know,
17 countries united against Russia.
United against progress.
Wait, what did I say? What did I say?
Like you wouldn't think a hyper-national organization like the EU is capable of making decisions fast. And so given that they only started the effort fairly recently, the fact that they already have AI policy and they're trying to implement it in law, that's very fast. But it's kind of risky too. It's risky either way. It's risky if you don't have any sort of policy because then it's all free for all and you don't know what the impact on your citizens is going to be. But it's risky in that it's still very early, right? Like we're really struggling to sort of pick basic tooling that we should be standardizing on because everything's moving so fast. And so to be able to say this is the right law and the right regulation that will control AI in the right way, I think it's a little bit early to really...
in that case of the UAE though, they're saying that AI, and we don't know what AI yet, if maybe they've created their own kind of language, that's writing the laws, not my interpretation of that, they're writing the laws for the country, not the laws around AI. And that kind of makes sense. I mean, America could take that and apply it to all those stupid laws they have from 1925 law that a man shall not feed his cow more than 3 beers. So it could take decades of legislation and modernize it.
There's some awesome, I talked to Helmut from Ngāti Toa about this. This was like 2 years ago. And it was basically, New Zealand is a very interesting regulatory environment because we effectively have 2 governing pieces of legislation. And it's argued the toss on, which one is right and interpretation and all of that stuff. But the unintended side effects of policies, AI has the ability to kind of extrapolate some of that. And so creating more equitable policies, I think it has the ability to be more objective if prompted in the right way.
Yeah.
Now, if you prompt it by saying, starting with the Old Testament, you're kind of fucked, no matter what you do,
Yeah.
UAE, they're definitely one of the more progressive societies, but it needs to be prompted in the right way.
Yeah.
And I think it's really a great tool for stuff that isn't societally opinionated.
Yeah.
So if it's not societally opinionated, like financial regulation, that should be black and white.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is kind of prevent side effects. So a good side effect is basically the EU's fines for tech companies, for example. I think Apple paid $700 million. I don't even think it'll make a line item on this year's annual report, that fine. Because the unintended side effect is actually they made the fines too cheap. So there's no deterrent. Because Apple, by breaking that law, Apple probably, I'm speculating, but probably made more money by breaking that law.
Wow, yeah.
So,
and that question is that are monetary fines the right way?
I wouldn't be surprised if business cases nowadays included the fine as a cost. So it's like, hey, we're just going to plow along with this, and the financial fine is this much, so we'll just deduct that from the expenses. And hey, presto, we're still making a boatload of money, so we should go ahead and do this, right?
Yeah.
Because that category of law, it just doesn't have teeth.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at financial repercussions and kind of looking for alternative or innovative ways to make these fines smarter and, moving to a percentage-based fine of global revenues, which is what the EU is now doing, you might skip that learning stage. You might be able to go straight from we need a new law or we need to change the law and we're going to try something which might take 5 to 10 years and then we're going to learn from it and we're going to increment that law or improve that law. We might be able to skip that 5 to 10 year thing. And in New Zealand's context, I think we might be able to kind of go, okay, we're going to put in, capital gains tax or we're going to put in a stamp duty. What are the unintended side effects for these different demographics of this policy? And then kind of map out the consequences. Like, actually, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should tweak it differently or whatever. I don't endorse a capital gains tax.
I'm going to read you the last part of this caption because
Too
this
late.
is kind of
It's
interesting.
just too late.
We need a bit. I'm not even going to get started on housing, but
Yeah.
I'm going to read you this last part. So Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum stated, "This new legislative system powered by artificial intelligence will change how we create laws, making the process faster and more precise." And then it just finishes off with this fact. AI is projected to reach a global market value of $15.7 trillion, and I can only assume they're talking US dollars, by 2030, with the potential to cut government costs by 50%. And that's massive. And we know in New Zealand, like every other month, you've got a news article saying XYZ
It's also
government
a
department
lie.
has spent 15, 20, 30, $80 million over budget on particular consultancy. Although that AI stuff is happening, I can't help but look at all of the structures in place, the organizations, the CEOs, the power structures at a human level and go, they're going to prevent it because livelihoods depend on it. AI simply can't take over everywhere. People won't allow it.
It's not just that. AI is not morally aligned,
Yeah.
right? So the people who are trying to do bad things will use AI too.
Yeah.
There is an adversarial nature here. So, in the case of laws, right now I am sure multinationals are busy trying to use AI to look for clever loopholes that will allow them to get away with,
Trump's
reducing
like,
their tax.
ChatGPT, how can I become the next pope?
Exactly, right? And so, you look at it in terms of trying to prevent copying, for instance, right? Like there's been this industry around digital rights management and copy protection in software since basically computers were first invented, right? Like I even on the Commodore 64, I remember some games not working because the copy protection was, too aggressive and the disk would fail quickly. But that's just been a consistent arms race from then till now of better and better copy protection being offset by better and better attacks, cleverer people with better tools who are able to reverse engineer that copy protection and work around it. And yes, AI might, enable us to build laws that are more resilient, have less loopholes, less inconsistencies, more aligned with the outcomes that we're actually looking for, fewer side effects. But it's also going to allow people to look for side effects that might otherwise have been missed, look for opportunities to, avoid tax and move funds around and all the other things that people are trying to do. They are not going to stop wanting that.
Yeah.
And they've got a new tool in their toolbox too.
Yeah.
I'm just looking up. There's this article.
I just thought you were being super rude.
No, I was just. I'm trying to find the statistic because I read it this morning, and Microsoft claims that they block this year. I think it's this year. So in the last 4 months, they've blocked $4 billion worth of Gen AI powered scams.
Yo.
So that's what Hamish's point. I just need to check the period, but the number's very believable.
There was a story a little while ago because all of these cloud platforms, right? They all want to own the whole pie. So they're being pretty aggressive about turning on AI capability, and Microsoft is definitely one of them, right? Like they've put the default price of Office has gone up so that they can include AI functionality by default in Office.
I now use LibreOffice.
Do you?
I do. I
What's
use
that?
Open Office. It's basically like a
Oh, yeah.
free
Is that the one you
version
showed
of
me the
Office.
other day? Yeah.
It doesn't have cloud. It doesn't connect to the internet. It just runs on your computer, and it runs on Linux, and it runs on Windows. It doesn't.
This is
kinda
just so
runs on
you
Mac.
can sit in a bunker when the zombie apocalypse finally takes over and you've just got everything there.
Speaking as a CTO, I'm sick of the quantum of cloud services I have to rely on.
Yeah.
Like, I went to the Spark store the other day, and I looked at a Nokia 235, which is a $109 dumb phone.
Yeah.
And I was like this close to buying it because I was like, I actually only text and call. And I checked my email. So I was like looking up what the email client looked like. And I was like, I think I could do my job on this.
Yeah.
And I don't need to pay for iCloud. Don't need to take any photos because I don't take any photos. Everyone around me takes the photos.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
a little bit of the privilege of being able to rely. Like there's all of these things, but those jobs are outsourced. If those people disappeared,
It's
you'd be like,
But I still wouldn't take any photos.
there's an interesting
There's like 3 photos of me floating around that I actually took that I like in all of human history.
But one of the things I do commend them for is all of those CEOs of cigarette companies, all super heavy smokers,
Smoke like
right?
chimneys.
have you ever seen that movie? Thank You for Smoking.
Yes, Aaron Eckhart at his best.
Amazing. But isn't that true of so many industries? Like, there's like people who work in the meat industry who become vegetarian. There's a lot of industries where if you see too far behind the curtain, you're simply overexposed in it, and I've seen too much, I can't go forward.
I think with the cloud services and stuff, like it's a little bit too loose. Like now when I sign up to a random service, because I still want to buy stuff, I still want to be active on the internet. And I want convenience to some degree, right? But when I sign up to stuff, I don't put in my real name, I don't put in my real birthday, and I use a burner email address because I'm like, at some point, these guys are going to lose my data.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, that's the thing that I have the biggest problem with. Is
Yeah.
like, I don't know how good you are back there.
Yeah.
And so
And I think I'm pretty good at it. I think, we as a company do a pretty good job of it. There is stuff that I'm like, we don't want to handle that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like we talk to companies in the medical industry, and we're definitely willing to work with them. But every time we're talking to them, I'm always, this is a significantly higher risk. We're going to have to be really careful with what we do here because it's so easy to make a mistake here. And I would rate us very highly in terms of the attention to detail and our ability to meet that standard, right? So are the companies that are actually providing those services meeting that standard? For liability reasons, I will say, definitely they're not.
voiceover
But I really
sound.
like. I always,
Yeah.
given how much terrible software I interact with on a daily basis, the number of websites that don't work or break or have forms that are impossible to fill out, I'm just like, I just try and minimize the amount of data I'm providing to everybody because I just kind of don't trust that as a whole, statistically, companies are going to do the right thing with my information.
Yeah. I mean, we have to, I know that we're going to do more episodes. 100%. Health tech and AI has to be a whole thing on its own. I know that the former CEO of Orion's just started a health tech company that would be really fascinating. AI tech specifically. What's his name? McLean?
John McClane? No.
That
No,
dude can do
he doesn't.
everything.
Is his address Nakatomi Plaza?
Cybersecurity and data, which is a big thing.
Oh, he was running cables. That's what he was doing in the vents.
Exactly. He was running Cat 5.
Trying so hard to wrap us up here.
Did you know Bruce Willis got paid $5 million for his receding hairline in Die Hard? And
What?
Yeah. He got paid $5 million. It was his first action role. And all of the studio execs were basically like, this is a crazy bet. Because prior to that, he only had done the TV show Moonlight.
Yeah.
So he was kind of coming off like a TV high. And Sylvester Stallone was at his peak. Arnie was at his peak. And bodybuilding and physique was like considered the action hero of the day.
Yeah.
And the producer and one executive basically were like, no, we need an everyman. And they picked Bruce Willis. And apparently he was still shooting Moonlight at the time. And so all of his emotional distress and fatigue and everything that was like loaded into the film
It's very
was
real.
he was awake for like 22 hours in
my
most
gosh.
most of the shoot. So he was legitimately tired, legitimately irate, and apparently just came through. Like when he was crying in the movie or like upset, he was actually upset.
So there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that again, like I'm starting to.
He was
feel
not
all
an
these-
AI.
All these really
Yeah.
interesting things and method acting. I mean,
Just to bring it back.
watching the documentary about The Shining and actually the genuine trauma that he put those actors through, especially the woman whose name I forget right now. But
Shelley Duvall.
yes, watching her talk about how really terrified and sleep deprived and actually bullied she was is kind of awful. Then you kind of look at this potential AI world and you go, well, I'm not saying that that's necessary, but it's an interesting angle. Okay,
What,
I am
that
going to...
humans are worse than machines?
That humans are better actors when they're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
That you get my most authentic self when I'm like right on the edge of burnout. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. So we are calling this podcast Human in the Loop because it's something I hear at least 6 times a day in our office, fully believing that you need to keep a human in every decision around AI, specifically technology in general. What does human in the loop mean to you guys other than what I just said?
HITL.
It's not an acronym I love.
And on that bombshell,
Oh my God. You guys.
Yeah, human in the loop. I'll say it and you can wrap up. I mean, for me, it's more like, what's the point of anything, right? Like it sounds really philosophical, right? But there's no, like, we can set a bunch of AIs to talk to each other and boil the oceans with all of the energy they use, and they can entertain themselves with weird pictures of hands with too many fingers. But that's all completely pointless, right? Ultimately, all of this is to drive some sort of human experiential value.
Yeah.
If we're not doing that, what's the point?
Yeah.
well said, Hamish.
Thanks.
I'm a control freak with,
Everything.
yeah, like a lot of childhood trauma. No,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm really fine. I'm not triggering at all. Human in the loop. I don't know. It's just a new frontier. I think learning and the evolving world is just a fascinating place. And I think it's worth talking about. And I don't want to talk about it with a robot. So let's put a human in there, because I think it's, that's the core of everything, isn't it? Isn't it? Right now. Maybe later. We'll talk to robots all the time, or listen to their radio stations and do talk back and stuff. But not yet.
Thank you for joining us for the first episode of Human in the Loop. We are going to be coming back with interesting guests, interesting topics, cybersecurity, health tech. Until next time.